Hi friends, I'm Greg Adamore, your host for Experts of Southern Nevada. They call me the real estate coach because I'm on your team. And today we have a special guest, Senator Justin Jones, who's recently contributed a lot to the real estate industry. And one of the big things is the Homeowners Bill of Rights. A lot of people have been talking about the Homeowners Bill of Rights. And I know you had a lot of input in that. Justin, welcome to the show.
Thanks,
Can
Greg.
you tell us a little bit about the Homeowners Bill of Rights?
Sure. When I was on the campaign trail last year, running for office, I knocked on thousands and thousands of doors. And I heard from my neighbors, from my friends, from constituents, that they were really getting the runaround from the banks when they were dealing with foreclosure issues. I had been through a similar issue with my grandmother. My grandparents had retired to Las Vegas about 20 years ago, bought a simple ranch-style home down in southern part of the valley, and unfortunately fell on hard times. And my grandmother was too proud to tell me that she was facing difficult times. But my mom found out and gave me a call, knowing that I was an attorney, and asked me to get involved. And I called up my grandmother's lender, Ocwen, and tried to get them to work with her. And I got the same runaround that unfortunately so many people in this state have gotten. You talk to one person one time and another person another time, and they would tell you one thing and you would never get a straight answer, and they'd be trying to work with you on the one hand and trying to foreclose on you on the other. And it was really based on those stories from my own family, from my friends, from those who live in the southern part of the valley, that I decided that I really wanted to pursue something that would help people who are facing the foreclosure process right now. And so that's what the Nevada Homeowners Bill of Rights really does, is addresses many of the concerns that were raised by constituents across the state of Nevada. That includes a restriction on dual tracking. You're in the real estate industry, you know as well as anybody else what dual tracking is.
Sure.
Bank says, we're going to work with you, we're going to go through a loan modification, but at the same time they're pursuing foreclosure. They're filing notices of default, they're filing notices of sale, and this bill prohibits lenders from dual tracking. It also says, because we heard so often that people were getting the runaround, it says you have to have a single point of contact. So that when you call the bank and you want to get an answer, that they have to have the same person or the same department working with you each time that you call. They also have to send a notice prior to starting the foreclosure process. So 30 days before they send out a notice of default, they have to send a pre-foreclosure notice that explains how much you owe, what your options are, so that hopefully if there's an opportunity for the borrower to avoid the foreclosure process, they can do that before a notice of default is filed. One of the other things it also does is obviously we've heard so much, as I'm sure you've heard from people who are trying to sell their home, that they just keep getting the runaround, and so this requires that a bank give a yes or no answer when they're pursuing a foreclosure prevention alternative. It also makes it clear that those who are going through a judicial foreclosure get the same rights to go through the mediation program as through a trustee sale.
Oh, so mediation would carry over even in judicial foreclosures.
Correct.
Yeah, we've heard the buzzword judicial foreclosures a lot, and we understand that's a lot quicker process than the typical Nevada foreclosure process.
Well, the trustee sale process, which is what most foreclosures go through, is a 120-day process before the Homeowners Bill of Rights went into effect. You file a notice of default, you have to wait 90 days, and then you file a notice of trustee sale, and then you can go to a foreclosure sale at 120 days or more. Judicial foreclosures are more difficult. You have to file a complaint with the courts, costs more money, you have to pay filing fees. And so historically, banks have been reticent to pursue judicial foreclosures here. In some states, particularly on the East Coast, all they have is judicial foreclosures, and it takes a long time and it's very costly. But you saw here, partly as a result of the passage of AB 284 and some of the robo-signing that I know you've heard about, they didn't have their documents in order and couldn't go to a trustee sale. And so what some of the banks have done is go to a judicial foreclosure, because that's the only remedy that they really had available to them. And then I think some of them were trying to avoid the mediation program that we have here in the state of Nevada, and so they were pursuing judicial foreclosures. The Homeowners Bill of Rights at least says, hey, if you're going to pursue a foreclosure through a trustee sale and you have a right to go to mediation, then you have that same right if a bank decides to elect a remedy through a judicial foreclosure.
Well, it's nice to be kept informed about these new bills of rights that the homeowners are being offered now. So a lot of people who have gotten notices in the mail, it's a good time to contact a realtor and attorney, get your options explained to you. You know, there's free counseling, there's mediation services available for people who can't afford to have an attorney. And I know the Home Again program, we had lovely Miss Sandra Howdigi on, and we've had some folks come in from the Attorney General's office, and of course we're honored to have you come in, because I know you had a big part in drafting this, and it's kind of a champion for the people, that somebody's speaking up for those people that are in distress, that don't know what's going to hit them next. And I think this Homeowners Bill of Rights will be a very good thing for the public to become aware of. Is there a website or a way that they can learn more about the Homeowners Bill of Rights?
They can go to my website. We have some information up about the Homeowners Bill of Rights. If you go to jonesfornevada.com/homeowners, then that'll give some additional information about the Homeowners Bill of Rights. If you want to read the text of the bill, you can go to the legislature site. But it is a very lengthy and somewhat complex bill. It's almost 30 pages, and so it is a bit complex. But people can always call me. My cell phone is 702-265-5878. So if you want to call and get more information, I'm happy to take your calls and answer those questions.
Oh, that's very good. It's first time in the legislature. Yep. How's the experience going so far?
It's been a great experience. I got elected last year in November, so it's been almost a year since I was elected. Like I mentioned, I knocked on a lot of doors because I really wanted to hear the concerns of those people who live in the southwest part of Valley, which is what I represent, before going up to the legislature. And so I took those concerns with me up to the legislature. I was able to pass 8 of my own bills, which I think is probably more than any other legislator, or at least any other freshman. And it was a great process. You know, I'm someone who really enjoys the legislative process. I went to law school. I was a poli-sci major, and so I'm one of those weird policy nerds that actually enjoys the process. And so Nevada is unique. We only meet once every 2 years, and it's really hard to get the hard work of the state done in the 120 days that we have to pass all the legislation that we need to run the state. But we got it done. It was very busy in the last 48 hours in particular. We had many nights where we were there till 12 or past 12. And in fact, there were 2 or 3 bills that we didn't get done by midnight on the last day of the session. And so the governor actually called a special session. I'm back at 4 o'clock in the morning and passed a couple of bills that were really important.
Some donuts and coffee. And,
I slept on my couch.
Yeah, I know that. I kind of get a chuckle because I was a graduate of University of Las Vegas and poli-sci major, and I didn't know what I was going to do if I wasn't going to go into politics or teach school or somewhere. You know, I had to go into law school, which was my ambition, but wound up in real estate, went to Laguna Beach, California, and been doing it ever since full time. And it's always nice to know a lot of we have our own law school here in our Boyd Law School. So,
absolutely. Got some great graduates. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of UNLV grads at my past 2 law firms. So
that's got to be an experience of young minds and a passion. We had Marcus Conklin on, who was in the legislature over a decade, and then he helped with the Lead Institute on last week, and he was a valuable source of real estate knowledge. And I understand when he shared that a lot of the banks didn't want to put their input in. I mean, when they wanted to pass the Senate bill, I think it was a 321, or I'm not sure if it was the Assembly bill or the Senate bill. Senate bill 321. But sometimes their absence governs their consent. So we need to have the input for the banks, because the banks and the people all need to work together to find win-win solutions for the whole economy. And but I'm up in Rhodes Ranch where I live, and our office is up in
part of my district.
Yeah, part of your district. So I get a lot of your mail outs, and I called you and asked you to come on the show. And I know that we've been very supportive of you and the positive work you've been done in such a short time. Hope to see more input from you in the future. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Have you got a vision yet, or you're just going to kind of go with what the people need, or?
Well, I'm up for re-election next year. I fulfilled a term of somebody who resigned, and so usually Senate terms are 4 years. So I have to run again next year, and then if I get it re-elected, then I'd be there for another 4 years. So honestly, I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. I have family, a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old and a wife that are very important to me and demand a lot of my time and attention. And I don't want to miss out on being with my family, but I also know that the people of the state need good representatives up in Carson City so that we get the people's business done.
Yeah, we really appreciate everything you're doing so far up there, and I know as a family man, it does take its toll on you. Have a lot of demands, and it's good to be serving the community. And will they meet about every 4 months, every 2 years?
120 days every 2 years. We only get paid for the first 60 days by Constitution, but that's okay. We're doing the people's business.
Yeah, it's important to have a voice up there speaking on behalf of us. As far as the homeowners Bill of Rights again, has there been any specific discussion about homeowners associations? I know there's some folks that say that they have a super lien type of priority. They can actually take a home quicker, and then when they obtain it, the first mortgage or second mortgage is wiped out. So it seems like they would have an incentive, possibly, if it was misused, to foreclose on people.
This has been a very tricky area of law. We've seen here in Clark County that judges have gone different directions in terms of whether there's a super priority lien. Some have sided with investors who are buying homes and wiping out the first mortgage. Others have gone the other way. It's up before the Supreme Court. It's been briefed for a year now. I went to the oral arguments in October of last year, and we're still waiting on Supreme Court decision. I think that, frankly, they were waiting on us at the legislature to fix the problem. We spent a lot of time at the legislature dealing with this issue. Multiple hearings, particularly towards the end. I was involved in a couple of conference committees to try and get this issue resolved because there were so many people that were being affected by it. Homeowners associations, I've got more than 160 homeowners associations in my district. That's about as many as anywhere in the state. And it's something that they're very concerned about because if they don't have rights to collect, then it costs everybody who lives in a homeowner association more to live there. And so, frankly, on the second to last day of the legislative session, I got called in by my leaders and by the Speaker of the Assembly, and they put us in a big room and said to 20 of us, legislators, members of the banking community, the collections community, the realtors, lawyers, everyone was there, and our direction was come up with a solution. You got till 1 o'clock, and I will tell you, few people in that room could get on the same page. We really thought that we had something that would benefit everyone, but at the end of the day, a lot of those discussions fell apart because the votes just weren't there to pass what we were hoping to get passed. And so what was passed was a very narrow provision that requires that a homeowners association send one additional notice before it goes through the process of collecting on HOA liens.
And then, of course, HOAs, where they wouldn't be subjected to mediation, or would there be any mediation involved in that process, or is that a gray area that hasn't really been defined yet?
The common interest community laws are so contentious, and we had multiple bills up there. One of them was related to mediation, and so there are more opportunities to go to mediation. But we also have issues with our common interest community and real estate boards. I don't know if you've seen, there's been some criticism back and forth in the papers the last week or so, some squabbling among members of the boards. And so I think we have a lot of work to do. The problem is that nobody wants to touch this with a 10-foot pole because the passions are so ignited on both sides.
Very heated issue, very heated issue. Yeah, I would think that some of the HOAs, I know in times when we, as a practitioner, and dealing with the real estate transactions and trying to protect listings and sale agreements and buyers and sellers. A lot of times we have to deal with getting demands from HOAs, and if there's liens on the property, or they have to be updated, they have to be within 30 days current. So a lot of times that can stall out a transaction. A lot of them are being turned over to a group called NAS, and sometimes you have to pay a rush fee to get those documents and resale packages in. So in our districts, and we're Senator District 9, where I live, and of course our office is located, I didn't realize there was 160 HOAs. Your phone must be ringing.
It's the assemblyman from my district, James Healy, and I, one of the things that we set out to do when we got back from session was get out to the communities as much as possible. And one of the ways that we're really trying to do that is meeting with homeowners association boards. So we can at least hear from the boards, and the comments and complaints that people might have will filter up through their homeowners association boards. And so we're getting out to as many of those as possible. We've got Big Mountain's Edge boards next month that are coming up, annual meetings, and so if there's anybody out there in the southwest part of the valley that wants to sit down and talk, board members, members of community, I'm always available.
Well, that's good. Yeah, and I'm very active in that area. We're doing some commercial transactions now with a couple of big builders out there in the rural preservation area, and that's another issue probably for another time. But we're seeing a lot of construction, a lot of foreclosures. This week we were all pretty surprised to hear that there were 930 notice of defaults, or otherwise called NODs, this week. 930 in one day. Over the last year or so, I think we averaged less than 100 per month. And can we expect more of those? Where do you see the foreclosure crisis going?
Well, I think there's been predictions that there would be an uptick in foreclosures as we got closer to this deadline. We averaged around 700 or 800 foreclosures between January and May this year, and they dropped off down to 30-something in June when the end of the legislature came about. We had AB 300, which revised the prior AB 284 with regards to affidavits that lenders had to sign, come into effect. So every time a piece of legislation gets passed, I think the banks have to adjust their systems so that they can get back on track. They had asked for the changes to AB 284, and we were able to come to a solution that everyone agreed to. And I think you saw as they adjusted to the implementation of AB 300 from this last session for signing of affidavits for foreclosure, those foreclosures ticked up in July and again in August, and then in September they ticked up considerably. So it's hard to know whether the large uptick at the end of September was a result of filtering through from AB 300, or if SB 321, the homeowners bill, was part of it, or if it was a combination. Hard to know, but look, what you can't do is be afraid to pass good legislation because it might have an unintended consequence.
That's right, and I think a lot of people are looking to buy right now can realize that there's going to be a little bit more inventory, and as prices have spiked due to the shortage of homes and so on, and Las Vegas being one of the most undervalued places in the United States, according to Trulia, we were far below, in some cases, the replacement cost of the home. So we fell the hardest, we were the highest, now we're kind of recovering the fastest, and one of the top cities to recover economically, and in a lot of job growth areas, other indications of tourism and hotels, and a lot of promotions for Las Vegas. So it's good to see people going back to work, new houses being built, and but with this foreclosure thing, we'll have to keep an eye on it and see how that affects the market. But we do need a little bit more supply. There's been a lot of frustration for us realtors trying to find homes. We're putting in 10 offers, 15 offers, sometimes before we get one accepted, and we're competing against the cash investors. So hopefully this will slowly trickle into the market and bring in more inventory, which is a good thing. Short sales. The Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Act's due to expire at the end of the year. Have you heard anything as far as that possibly be extended? I have a lot of sellers that are in contract. The banks have been going very slow, and we're trying to grind them out. I know they're overworked. Some of them are underpaid and overwhelmed, the short sale departments. But any insights onto that? Heard anything from the inside, the grapevine, or anything on that?
That's a tough one, Greg. I mean, we've seen how dysfunctional the federal government is this past week. And over the last few years, they've passed the forgiveness tax credit at the end of the day, usually between Christmas and New Year's, because it's something that's very important to homeowners that are going through a short sale, so they don't get dinged on their taxes. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen with the federal government, but I certainly think that you're going to hear a cry from people who are still facing foreclosure, trying to avoid the ill effects of foreclosure by pursuing a short sale. And I think they're going to try and really put some pressure on federal legislators to do something that I think is still necessary.
Yeah, I think so. We hope so. Section 16.5 of the bill relates to the arm's length transaction, and you used to have to sign an affidavit as a realtor and as a buyer and seller, all the principles of the transaction, that you're not selling to somebody you know. Made it a little difficult because sometimes we knew somebody from the grocery store and we sold his house. We've seen them move. But now, as of October 1st, that arm's length transaction no longer applies in some situations or in all situations.
We heard when we were up at the legislature from a lot of folks, both realtors and from people trying to sell their home, that they had opportunities to sell to a family member or to a friend and stay in their home for a price that the banks otherwise would have accepted. But because of these provisions that banks enforced and some of the federal language that has been around for a while, they couldn't do that. And so we took a look at the issue, worked with the Legislative Counsel Bureau, which drafts all of our legislation, to see if we could bar the banks from enforcing those provisions. And the word we got back was that it was a violation of state and federal constitutional contracts clauses. And so it was a bit problematic for us to simply bar banks altogether from enforcing these clauses. But what we did in Section 16.5 of the homeowners bill is we said, we, the state of Nevada, do not have a policy against non-arm's length transactions. And so the idea there is that when you're going through the short sale process, someone who's trying to sell their home through a short sale can go to their lender and say, look, state of Nevada says you can do this transaction, so do it. That doesn't mean that the bank is compelled. At the end of the day, they could still say no, but it's something that will hopefully help move the process along for those people that have family or friends that are willing to help them through the process with a transaction that's still financially beneficial to the bank.
Sure, should be a win-win situation. I'm coming up on a lot of transactions where sellers have got to get at least 31 days behind, no matter what the circumstance. Could be death of a spouse, unemployment, divorce. Valid reasons for a short sale, acceptable according to the guidelines of the bank. However, if you're not behind, they won't even look at the file. I've got clients that are working for Department of Energy. They have national security clearances, and it's jeopardizing their jobs. But the banks, if they don't consider the short sale, they won't even consider a short sale, let's say, if there's not an imminent risk of foreclosure. Anything being done, or is there any other new bills that are dealing with that?
It's tough. Obviously, so many people going through this process got frustrated when they were current on their mortgage, but were struggling and were told basically by the banks, we can't do anything for you unless you default, which is counterintuitive to the average person.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's really changed that much. One thing that I will say with regards to people who are concerned about messing up their credit and how it might affect their jobs, we did pass legislation this last session that would prohibit an employer from looking at credit history in hiring or retention decisions, except in very narrow circumstances for financial institutions. And so I don't know if that's obviously going to solve the problem, but at least for those people that are fearing for job loss as a result of messing up their credit by defaulting on their loans, that will hopefully do something.
Yeah, and I've heard some rumor about relaxing the qualifications for buyers who have sustained a bankruptcy, foreclosure, or a short sale, that in some cases, if they can demonstrate certain hardships, I believe the loss of income of over 20% or something, that within 1 year from the time of the foreclosure, bankruptcy, or short sale, they may be eligible again to get a a loan. Is that gospel? Have you heard anything about that? I don't know if the banks applied it yet, but I know there's maybe it's a state law.
Yeah, it's not a state law. I don't know if it's gospel.
Okay.
But what I will tell you is I think that some of the banks are coming around to the idea that as the economy improves, they are more likely to lend to people that at the height of the crisis, they simply wouldn't loan money to. Yeah. And so I think if they see that someone is employed, is stable, has a regular source of income, that they are more likely to go ahead and lend, even though it's probably going to be at a higher percentage rate, but they're more likely to go ahead and lend and send it through an underwriter, even if they wouldn't have done so historically.
I see. Any other bills that might affect the homeowners that recently have been enacted or in the process of being discussed?
Yeah, one other one that I wanted to mention is Senator Ford's bill on abandoned properties. One of the things we used to see a lot and still see occasionally now are homes that are abandoned. They got the windows busted out, there's weeds all in the front yard.
Sure.
Those drive down the price of not only that home, but all the homes around it. And so what we did was craft legislation that would allow a bank that has a property that is truly abandoned, and they have to jump through a lot of hoops in order to do it, to go through an expedited process to make sure that that home gets back on the market as quickly as possible, so that somebody can buy the property, improve the property, and drive up not only the value of that home, but everybody else's home. So I think that's something that benefits everybody. It's got a lot of safeguards to make sure that somebody who went on vacation and came back doesn't get foreclosed on. They have to check the school records. You know, if the pool's green, then that's an indicator. If there's clear indication from multiple sources that someone has abandoned their home, then that will be provide a way for banks to go through.
So
an
they can
expedited process.
more of a fast track for them. That way they can clean up these properties that are dangerous to community.
Exactly.
That could be abandoned or for crime. And it does affect the value. So that's another good bill. I'm really pleased that we have a senator like yourself in District 9 representing up the southwest part of Las Vegas. And you've been very active, and I'm pretty impressed. We've got 8 bills passed. I didn't know they did that for the whole group. Can't agree and get that much consensus.
I'm pretty proud of the fact that as of 3 weeks ago, the U.S. Congress had only passed 26 bills, and we passed 550 in 4 months.
Well,
so.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're doing a great job. We support you. We're so happy that you could appear with us today. We're really looking forward to having you come back. Keep us informed as citizens, and not just District 9, but for the whole state of Nevada. And I just want to thank you again, Justin Jones, State Senator, District 9. You've enlightened us a lot, shared a lot of knowledge with our viewers. We look forward to having you back on sometime. And I just want to invite our guests that next Thursday, we'll be on, taping. Next Tuesday, we'll be showing there 9:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here on Keen TV, Channel 17. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next week.